welcome back to the Running Toward Life podcast. Join us as we run along with 11-time Western States Endurance Run finisher, sports journalist and author John Trent, as he runs beside and talks with some famous ultra runners, race directors, and members of this ever-growing, ever-running community. Let's see if we can catch up with him right now here. John, where are you there? You out there?
Running ultra pace, trying to make sure that I keep my pace gentle on this day. Welcome to the Running Toward Life podcast, and it's my real honor to introduce today's guest. Diana Fitzpatrick is the current president of the Western States Endurance Run. Diana is not only a leader in the sport, she's a highly competitive and highly accomplished runner herself. She holds the one of the age group records at Western States. She's finished Western States multiple times. She's won one of the oldest races in America in the Dipsy. And so she's done a lot of stuff over the years, accomplished a great many things, and she's a leader in the sport. Diana, it's great to have you on the Running Toward Life podcast.
Thanks so much. It is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Diana. I wanted to start out by asking you just about your involvement with Western States. You know, what first got you involved with Western States, and then what kind of led to you, eventually not only just running the race and finishing it and doing well, but then helping kind of lead it?
I first got involved with Western States. Honestly, it was my husband, Tim, ran it for the first time, I think in 2000 or 2001. And I would say what led us there was having, we live in Marin County, right outside in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of trail running here and a big trail running community. And it's actually one of the early trail running communities for Western States. So the Tamalpa Runners is a running club that we've belonged to for many years. And they always had a big contingent of runners at Western States. And this is back in the day, back in the early years. So it was living here and getting connected to that community that introduced us to Western States. And somewhat that same community is also connected to the Dipsy. And when you live in Marin, it's very easy to first start with the Dipsy. That's more manageable because it's only about 7.5 miles. And then for some people, it leads to just more trail running in general. And then for my husband and I, it led to Western States.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, obviously as a runner, it's a can be kind of a solitary endeavor, but it feels like with you, especially as your running has progressed, more and more it's become about being part of a community, whether it's the Western States community, the community you just talked about, the runners of Marin, and, just in general, staying involved and being a part of what the sport is all about. Why is that aspect of running important to you, where it's not just necessarily about going out and running the race, but helping organize, helping lead, helping kind of think about what might lie ahead in the future for everybody in terms of building community?
That's such a good thing to talk about, because I think for a lot of people, myself included, when I was more focused on my own running and more competitive, and I really started out more as a road runner. And in those days, though, I must say, community has always been a big part of my running. It's made it what's been the most enjoyable thing about it for me. So even as a competitive road runner, when I first moved to San Francisco in 1990, I joined within the first day. I think I went to Hoy's Running Sports in Haight-Ashbury and met Mike Finelli, who was the running coach of the Impala running team. And through him, I joined the Impalas. And that was it is an all women's running team and an amazing community of runners and support and everything else at whatever level you're at. So for me, that's where it started. And again, I was more focused on my own running and then transitioned to trail running. But through teams, you always get opportunities to help out at aid stations or to do other volunteer work. So it's a very natural thing when you run with a community of people that you end up helping support as it fits in. And I must say now, the rewarding thing about running is I still like to run and I still have a few goals, including the Dipsy in a couple of weeks. But really the real joy I get out of it now is seeing other people running and be involved in it, whether it's opening doors for other people of what running is all about, or making it happen, or being on the board. I coach at San Quentin. That's a huge part of my life, really, and I've gotten so much out of that. And again, there are just so many ways that you can give back, but it's not even giving back, because actually you get so much out of it.
Yeah, and Diana, I was going to ask you about your work with the incarcerated population, helping people who are at San Quentin, run and accomplish some goals. What's that been like for you, and why do you keep doing it?
It's been an amazing journey and learning process for me. San Quentin is right here in Marin County, and you get views of it from the top of Mount Tam. Or for me, I commuted daily over to the East Bay, and you go across the Richmond Bridge, and you can almost peek into the yard, but not enough where you can see people. So it was just this abstract thing, and I got the opportunity through Frank Rona, a Tamalpan, again, runner, and they were looking for some help with coaching. So this was over 10 years ago. And I just, because it's right there, and I thought about all these people inside, that there are all these lives and people, and it's so close yet so far. And so I started, and it has been, like I said, a real learning experience, an incredible thing to have gotten to know the men and to be able to go in. At the same time that I was doing the coaching at San Quentin, my husband and I were also doing high school coaching. And they're both very rewarding, but in very different ways. And there was just such gratitude, and the men at San Quentin are so receptive and open to learning and to getting the benefits of coaching, and people just showing up and showing they care and treating them like they have value and worth. And they do so much through their own running. You see, you always talk about like applying lessons of running to the rest of your life. That's so clear and visible with that population of men. And so that in and itself is rewarding.
And Diane, you want to mention the film that came about from that?
Yeah. So in the last, I guess, I can't remember what year it started, but the program itself, the running program, is based on, we go in regularly to coach Mondays, and then throughout the year, there's a training program with races, and it builds up to a marathon in the fall. So we've probably had about 12 marathons, and it started with one guy who wanted to run a marathon. So I was there when he ran. Ronnie Goodman ran one marathon, his marathon, as the only participant. And then over the years, it's grown, and there were probably close to 30 men who ran the last one. And in the meantime, a documentary producer, Christine Yu, got interested, heard about the club, got interested, came in and did a documentary film called 26.2 to Life that's just been released this past year and is making the round at independent film festivals. I just came back from Denver, where I spent 2 days with one of the formerly incarcerated men who's featured in the film, and the producer, Dylan Bowman, because it was at his company, BOA, that showed it. And the film is doing incredibly well. And it's really the story of like what running can bring to people, and also really telling the stories of these men and how they are real people, and have, you see how they have grown and what running means to them. And you just learn to understand that incarcerated people are people like you and me.
So cool. That is really something else.
It's done really well, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. We mentioned the Dipsy. If you wouldn't mind, for folks who don't know what the Dipsy is, and it can be a bit complicated, but if you want to explain what it is, and you need to acknowledge that you've won this race, and I think that's so awesome. So you need to explain what the Dipsy is and how you've been a past winner of this event.
The Dipsy, I believe, is the oldest trail race in the country. And I think it might be the oldest race besides the Boston Marathon. So it's been around for a very long time. And it starts in downtown Mill Valley in Marin County, and it goes up and over Mount Tam and ends at Stinson Beach. And it's about 7 point something miles, 7.5. Historically, you can use shortcuts, and it doesn't have a set route. Now that route has gotten more and more determined because it's harder to get shortcuts through properties and whatnot. But the real distinguishing feature of the Dipsea is that it has a handicap start. So they every minute a different group goes off for the start, and it's based on your age and sex. So you get a handicap, you get a head start. The older you are, or if you're very young, women get more of a head start over men. So for example, in the first group, you'll have the oldest women, the oldest men, and then the youngest kids. And then it just goes down from there to the scratch runners, which are men 35 and under. They have kind of broad groups in some areas, especially open men, or I guess it would be probably like 18 to 30 for the scratch men. So they the idea behind it is that they set up the handicaps so that age and sex shouldn't matter. They try to level the playing field. So really just the fastest person, given their age or sex, crosses the finish line. So there's a lot of fast people. The New York Times did an article on it once, and they described it, which I thought was very apt, as it would be like going to the zoo and letting the animals out in the reverse order of mobility. So you let the rhinos and the hippos out first, and then at the very end are the cheetahs and the gazelles. So the fast ones are bearing down on the slower runners who might have as much as a 15 or 20 minute head start on them. And you feel that. I've always had a somewhat of a head start because women always get a head start. So you feel that pressure of people coming up from behind.
And you've won it.
So I won it in 2013. I was 50 something, and 2016, the year after that.
What is that like?
I won it 2 years in a row.
What does it feel like when you won that race?
It's funny because those years and in a lot of recent years, I do get a big head start. So a lot of times during the race, I get to a section of the course where I can forget it's race day because I don't see anyone, because I've started and I've passed the people who are slower or older than me. And so I can be way at the front going up over Cardiac. That's kind of the key point. From there, it's all downhill to Stinson. And there are usually people up there telling you what place you're in. So during that time period, I can still get up to Cardiac. I think even last year, I'm usually in the top 5 or 10. And then that's when people start coming from behind and getting you. The year I won it, you never know, because it can be in the last, I have been outstepped at the finish line by somebody. If anyone is close to me coming down the street, you go around a corner and you head straight to the finish line of the Dipsea down at Stinson Beach. And if I hear footsteps behind me, it's probably some 20 or 30 something year old guy. And there better not be too much space between me and the finish, or that person's going to pass me. So that's kind of my experience is, if I'm far enough ahead, I can hold on to that lead, but I am being chased.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, the fact that you won that. And then also, you're an age, you hold one of the age group records at Western States. You're the only woman over the age of 60 to break 24 hours at Western States. And, before we talk about, the last part of this about your presidency, just tell the folks a little bit about, that year when you set the age group record, when you made history and broke 24 hours. Nobody's done it. No female has done it since. This is a record that's going to last a while. Why was that an important day for you?
I didn't know what to expect, to be honest, going into it. I had run Western States in 2014 when I was 56, but that's a big difference, 56 to 60. And I also hadn't done even many ultras in that time period. I may have run a marathon or done some shorter distances. So I tried to go into it with the attitude that I had done my training and stayed healthy. And that was the main thing. I thought if I can get to the start line healthy, that will be really important. And then a lot will just depend on that day, and really not knowing what it would be like to be 60 and to try to run that distance. I thought there might be some unknowns, and there were. It was hard. And most of the day, I didn't think I was going to be doing it. I was about half an hour to 45 minutes over 24 hours for most of the day, including leaving. I believe I was the last person to leave Forest Hill and still break 24. And my daughter paced me from Forest Hill down to the river. And at that point, we weren't even worried about it. I talked to her and I said, it's fine. But I still want to get as close to 24 as I can. But I'd almost given up on it. And then slowly things picked up. Dave Mackey paced me for a section. And then my husband was out there being very realistic and encouraging, but also making me keep my head in the game, that I should still be trying my hardest. And then my son brought me in, and that final stretch, he kept referring to the Dipsy. It's like, these trails are nothing. You got this. So I actually, every aid station at Western States has a sign up to tell you what pace you're on, what you need to be there in order to break 24 and 30. And I was never on 24-hour pace until No Hands Bridge. And then at No Hands Bridge was the first time I looked at my watch and I was on pace for the 24-hour.
There's not many miles left in the race at that point.
No, you don't have much time. And then I was like, okay, well, now I don't want to be 24:01, frankly. So I ran scared. But it was great. That was actually probably my favorite Western States. Having my kids and my husband pacing, and good friend Dave Mackey out there, and not knowing the outcome and having it close like that is actually really fun.
Yeah. So not only do you hold this record, but you have the distinction of being the first woman to be the president of the Western States Endurance Run. Since 2019, you've held that post, Diana. How would you describe Western States and where it is today?
Western States is, when I became president, it was in a great position already. We've had a solid board for so many years. And I would say today, it's just building on that. And there's now a lot of new board members. So we have some new voices on, which is really excellent. And we still have some board members that bring the history and legacy. So I feel like we have a really good combination of both moving us forward into the future. And people really I feel like it's a good combination of keeping the eye mostly, particularly on the ball, of making sure that we really do stay relevant and on top of change, and receptive and open to change going on in the sport. Which I feel like we've done a really good job with. And of course, we have Craig Thornley, our race director, who is, amazing. So
yeah,
it's a big difference.
It is. And looking forward, Diana, where do you see Western States being? Because you said it, Western States always needs to be relevant and is considered a leader. How does it maintain being a leader in the sport, do you think?
I think it's important that one way to be a leader is to always, like I said, to just be aware of what's going on, so that you're not reacting to things, that instead you're sort of thinking forward about what's happening and what you want to be on top of, whether it's, whatever issues are happening, including, right now we're so focused on trail work. Well, that is part of our core mission. And it's kind of taking our focus back to that this year. But it's also making us realize how important that is, that we really are, responsible for that trail and getting it open for users and breaking our backs to get it open as quickly as we did this year, which took an incredible amount of effort. You had John Katz, our trail manager, and Craig Thornley, and then a number of people, his team, just his personal team out there. Incredible numbers of hours on the trail doing hard work, and then also doing the behind the scenes work that needs to be done to get that to happen with U.S. Forest Service, ASRA, our partners. So that was presented to us And, we dove in and really got that done. So that's one way, is like also just making sure that you're taking care of everything, including that core thing, which is the trail for us.
That's really cool. We have time for one last question, I think, at this point. So I'm just curious for you on race day, when you're at the finish line, what kind of emotions do you feel as you see the runners cross the finish line? You've been there yourself. What kind of pops into your head as you see all shapes and sizes of people from all backgrounds throughout many hours finish across that finish line?
That's so true, that it's everything that you see there. One thing that always comes to mind is how much people put into getting to that moment, from the lottery, all the qualifiers, everything else, and all the hopes and dreams of getting to that moment. And then all the behind the scenes sport, which we all know is so important and such a crucial part of it. And you don't even see that, although you do see it, because a lot of times people, when they cross the finish line, they're surrounded by people and there's joy and tears and everything else. So it's an incredibly emotional moment. And, I can get choked up talking about it. So, but it's an amazing thing, but it's really that all the time and effort. And then it's also all the time and effort of getting the event ready. So, the pressure of getting people there and it happening successfully.
Diana used the word amazing. Diana Fitzpatrick is one of the most amazing people I've ever known in the sport of ultra running and in life in general. I think all the things you do, Diana, remind us that we can all do a better job of all the things that we do. You set such a wonderful example for everybody. I'm just always so inspired by everything that you do. I want to thank you for being part of this podcast.
Well, thank you. And John, right back at you on all of that. You are an incredible voice, person, mentor, everything for me and for this sport.
Thank you so much, Diana. And that's it, folks. We'll see you next time on the trails.
Well, there you have it. One more reason to tune in each and every time as we run toward life on this podcast. If you like it, share it, subscribe, share it with the world. And until then, John said, we'll see you on the trail. Right here from Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.